Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess? Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you with a really exciting video, or at least exciting for me, not that kind of exciting. 2024 has been the year of finally, after being a fan of the original Friday the 13th for decades, and it being among my favorite films, and the franchise being my favorite all-time movie franchise. 2024 for some reason was the year I'm like, you know what, it's been long enough, it's been too long, I gotta get a Camp Crystal Lake sign. And you guys may have seen my video from earlier in the year, I think in the summer, I think it was spring or summer, where I actually got a Camp Crystal Lake sign off eBay and was kind of none too impressed with it. I'll try to remember to put a link to that video in the description, but cut to later on, the fall of 2024, I came across this. I was in Spirit Halloween up to like the last days of October, seeing what the hell was going to be left over for the sale for November 1st, hoping to get like a metal Freddy glove, and unfortunately those, as far as I could see, were all gone. Plus, I think the costumes were only like 25% off, and the wall decor is the 50% off stuff or whatever. But this I got before November 1st, so I paid the whopping full price, which we'll get to. Is I'd probably pay $10 or $20 more. I'd be happy to pay, or would have been happy to pay $10 or $20 more than I paid for this. Incidentally, it's the same cost that I paid for that kind of more or less disappointing Camp Crystal Lake sign that I got off of eBay earlier in the year. I've been in Spirit. Spirit Halloween is hit or miss, and sometimes some years I don't go at all. I can remember going to Spirit Halloween in 2017 or somewhere along there, maybe 16 or 18 or 17 or whatever. And I remember coming across a Camp Crystal Lake sign, but I want to say it was like half the size of this, or maybe even smaller. And I'm pretty sure they wanted like frickin' $40. It seemed like an astronomical price at the time for something so small. And plus, because I wasn't a fan of it, the price was the main reason why I didn't get that sign at that time. But the other reason was, of course, these signs, which, as we'll get to, are produced by Open Road Brands, and this one's sold exclusively through Spirit Halloween. The Open Road branded Camp Crystal Lake signs, whether you get the sign or I've actually got an Open Road brand little magnet, so which is actually the exact same kind of makeup as this. But all those Open Road brands Camp Crystal Lake signs, as you may or may not know, have on the bottom corner here a Friday the 13th logo. And that, combined with the astronomical price, I'm pretty sure they wanted $40 for that all the way back then, probably half the size of this. Those two factors made me not pick up the sign at that time. Cut to 2024, already getting more or less a, kind of cool but not so amazing, half cool and half disappointing Camp Crystal Lake sign off with someone who just makes them on eBay. Came across this like the last days of October 2024 in Spirit Halloween, and I'd gone to Spirit Halloween a little bit this fall, and I hadn't seen this until that day that I went, just before November. And when I saw this, it was hard for me, being a huge fan of the original film from 1980. It was really hard for me to just not just spontaneously go nuts in the store. I took all I had to just calm myself down, and in my head I was going nuts. But I never seen anything like this size before. I mean, obviously it's just like with the one that I saw in 2017 or whatever. It's an Open Road Brands products, exclusively, probably like that was as well, exclusively sold through or by Spirit Halloween. But I'd never seen anything of this size before, and when I saw this I was like, oh mama. So I just wanted to stop on by to showcase this, showcase. It's turned out to be showcase this. It's actually 20 inches tall by 20 inches wide, and they say it's 0.37 inches deep, made out of medium density fiberboard. This thing is hands down the best Camp Crystal Lake sign I've ever saw, and I was able to get this for just $30 before tax, of course. Obviously, if I'd have been able to get this. I did go there on November 1st as well, of course. There were only two of these there when I got this, Probably should have got both of them, but that's okay. I got this. And if there had been another one there on November 1st, I would have gotten it for $15. You can bet your sweet ass. But one thing's, some of the things of note to point out for the Open Road Brands version of the Camp Crystal Lake sign, which is, I don't know when the first year they would have put this out, if it would have been 2014, 15, 16. I really don't know the history of the Open Roads brand Camp Crystal Lake sign sold exclusively through Spirit Halloween. But one thing I do know about it is, like I say, the first time I ever saw one back in 2017 or something, it had, of course, I think it was half the size of this, and it had, of course, the Friday the 13th logo in the bottom corner. Now this, maybe because the sign is so big, they were able to make it smaller. This almost seems smaller than I remember, so it's possible on this big size sign that it's smaller than it used to be, or maybe just the overall just amazingness of the sign just makes me kind of not really care too much about the Friday the 13th logo in the bottom corner. But as you can see, I think this is pretty much, short of having some, master artistry, woodsman, paintsman make something for you, or doing this yourself if you're some master painter and stuff. Short of that, this is probably the best Camp Crystal Lake sign you can currently get. This is absolutely amazing, and I did look at the movie, or still from the sign of the movie, and it's not, by any stretch an exact reproduction at all. In the movie, the picture is more of a circle, and it goes further up, and there's not as many birds, and all these kinds of details, which at the end of the day don't really matter so much. I almost think that quite possibly the layout that they did for their version, the Open Road Brands, might be, I don't know, I guess since I see this more often than I see the sign in the movie, because it's just sitting around my abode, as it were. I mean, this is, it's not a perfect representation, but I almost want to say that it's possibly better, because the sign in the movie, I think the Camp Crystal Lake is actually more downplayed, and the painting of the image here is more upplayed, like it takes up more space. This way, the Camp Crystal Lake, it takes up most of it, and the image is more downplayed. I almost feel like that's a better way to handle the overall situation. And something else to note of these Open Road Brands Camp Crystal Lake signs is the first one I've ever saw, of course, is that one from Spirit Halloween in 2017 or something. But then years later, I did find at Spencer's or something an Open Roads brand little magnet made out of, like, almost kind of, I don't know what, plastic rubbery material with a magnet on the back to put on the fridge or whatever. And that's been basically my best Camp Crystal Lake sign I've ever, owned for the last several years, and I kind of have it just poised next to some, Friday the 13th figures and whatnot, Pamela Voorhees figures and stuff. But that is the exact, made of course by the same company as this. It has the exact same layout, the exact same Friday the 13th logo in the bottom corner, and as we'll get to right now, the thing which I find relatively curious, because having looked at the sign from in the actual movie, the daylight scene when they arrived at Camp Crystal Lake, I'm not exactly sure why Open Road Brands did this, and they did this, I think, from day one with that sign I saw in 2017, the little magnet I got that they made, and now this curious thing, which I think is kind of a cool addition, honestly. This curious thing that they do by having a line here, which is actually in this version, it's actually engraved. It goes down like, I don't know, 2 or 3 millimeters or something, but it's actually an engraving made like this and down here as well. And I think the whole point of that is it gives it the appearance of actually being 3 separate pieces of wood that are combined together to basically make the sign. Now, like I say, having looked at the scene where they arrive at Camp Crystal Lake in the actual movie, Friday the 13th from 1980, I don't see any evidence of that sign being like 3 different pieces all cobbled together to be one. So, of course, I don't have the 4K. Maybe if someone's got the 4K, they can examine it all the more closely. But it begs the question, why did Open Road Brands do this, or choose to do it that way, to make it look like it's 3 separate pieces of wood combined together onto a sign to make it overall one sign. Incidentally, like I talked about, the overall, they may have almost improved on the sign by making the Camp Crystal Lake bigger and making this image smaller. I mean, part of me thinks it's another improvement. Honestly, it gives it more of a rustic, campy, campy as in camp in the woods. It gives it almost more of a rustic look and more of an authentic kind of wooden sign look. So even though it's quite possible that's not how the sign is in the actual movie, just like how they took some license and liberties with their own version of the Camp Crystal Lake sign by making the type, the print bigger and the picture smaller. I actually think that addition of making them two slits to make it look like it's three separate pieces of wood cobbled together to make the sign actually makes the sign look even better. I talked about, seeing the Open Road Brands Camp Crystal Lake signs, the wooden, the same kind of thing in much smaller sizes in the past. It actually makes me wonder if this is, when exactly they started making the sign of this bigger size, 20 inches by 20 inches. And that's something that I probably won't necessarily ever know. I don't think I really bothered with Spirit Halloween last year, or maybe not even the year before. I can never remember seeing a Camp Crystal Lake sign this size before. If I'd seen this thing before, it wouldn't have mattered if it was $40. Like I said earlier, I would have easily paid $40, $50, possibly $60 for this thing. In person, if you're a huge fan of the first Friday the 13th from 1980, what? I thought the first one was from 2009. Go to hell, just kidding. But if you're a big fan of the first film from 1980, this is like a must have. And I'm just, what I was getting at before is it was like, is this the first year that they made this sign this big? It's possible. And having looked on the back of the sign, I was able to see the sticker on the back that says Spirit Halloween Phase 2, and look at that, it's got like 4/2024. So I'm assuming this sign here was manufactured in April of 2024, and the only question is, was this the very first year that a Camp Crystal Lake sign of this size was produced by Open Road Brands for exclusive sale through Spirit Halloween? Feel free to chime in the comments if you happen to know. Have you seen a Camp Crystal Lake sign in years past this size? It's very possible that just happened to be the 2024, the year that I just had to get Camp Crystal Lake sign. It's possible that this is the first year that they offered this sign in this size of a whopping 20 inches high by 20 inches wide. Like I say, you see it in real life. It's just like a thing to behold, and I love the weathering they do. They just kind of do some weathering to make it look like it's been outside. And, I talked about that in my review of the eBay sign that I got earlier this year. I actually showcased, I showed a picture of this, or at least the smaller one from years past from Open Road Brands. And I talked about how much I thought that sign at the time, and still do think that now, of course, that this version, the Open Road Brands version, even if it has a Friday the 13th logo in the bottom corner, is the best way, or the best Camp Crystal Lake sign to get, because of all the things I've already mentioned, but also just the weathering that gives it that kind of the wood grain look, and the weathered wood grain look, and like dirt has got in there, and it's just kind of all dirty and stuff over the years. But yeah, I can't recommend this frickin' sign enough, and I was just thrilled to be able to get it for a measly $30. I mean, for this Friday the 13th fan, $30 is nothing. I just wish that I hadn't bought the one off eBay earlier and could have used that $30 towards this. But life at the end of the day does go on. So I guess that pretty much does it for the showcasing. Feel free to leave comments in the comments. Don't leave comments in the description. That could get confusing. Feel free to leave a comment in the comments about your thoughts on this, and what you think. Like, is this the first time? Is this year the first year that they sold a larger 20-inch by 20-inch Camp Crystal Lake sign, or has this been offered before? And I think that, one thing that I thought was kind of a bummer, and I should have thought of this, but it's kind of like, my thought process was earlier this year when I got the one off eBay that, well, Spirit Halloween is only open like in September and October, so I don't want to wait until then to get a sign. Well, duh, I mean, it's the 2024. It should have occurred to me to go online. Turns out I think you can get this online, possibly year-round. So if I would have had any brains at all, I would have looked up Spirit Halloween, website to see if I could have gotten this before I paid $30 for that, more or less lackluster sign on eBay. But chances are, if you're, if you're unaware or weren't previously aware that this existed, the whopping 20 by 20 inch Camp Crystal Lake sign from Open Road Brands, sold exclusively through Spirit Halloween, chances are you can get it on the website year-round. So fingers crossed if you happen across this video anytime, throughout the year, anytime but fall. Fingers crossed that anyone be able to get this any time of the year through the Spirit Halloween website. So I guess that pretty much does it for this showcasing video. Very happy Friday the 13th fan to be able to proudly display this in wherever I feel like displaying it in my particular abode. Very, very cool, and like, wow, every time you just set this up kind of over by wherever I set it up, kind of next to the TV where you're laying on the couch and watching whatever, and you can kind of glance over at it and just put a smile on your face and go, ah, finally, after all these frickin' years and decades, I've got what I would regard as the best replica of the Camp Crystal Lake sign. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, we'll catch you on the next video.